This is Rock and Roll English. Real people, real English. Here's your host, Martin Johnston.
Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Rock and Roll English. Episode number 131, baby. Oh yeah. And this is the second episode in the new R&R Expert Secrets, baby, where I speak to Peetu from İngilizce Fácil. I'm sure I've made about 100 mistakes in pronunciation there, so I apologise, but I know Peetu will forgive me. Anyway, there are some serious expert secrets in today's episode, people. Peetu actually comes from Finland and he speaks fluent Portuguese, fluent English, and obviously Finnish. And he has prepared a free gift for you, completely free. So listen to the end of the episode where he tells you where to get that free gift, and all of the links will be on the show notes. So if you go to rockandrollenglish.com/English Made Easy, because that is the translation of İngilizce Fácil. I had to Google that, by the way, as you can imagine. But if you go to rockandrollenglish/English Made Easy, or if you just go to rockandrollenglish.com, episode 131, you will find all of the links. And as we have another special guest here, to everyone listening to this podcast, you can download the transcript for the episode from the same page that I just mentioned. I don't need to say it again, do I? I've said it like 3 times. Just rewind like 10 seconds and then you'll hear me saying it. Anyway, as always, I'm talking rubbish, so I think it's best if we listen to the conversation. I will speak to you all again at the end, people. Happy listening. Hello, Peetu, and welcome to Rock and Roll English.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Pleasure to have you. I hope I pronounced your name right. Did I?
Almost.
Almost.
Yeah, almost. For most people who speak English or whatever language, they normally pronounce it Peetu. So, but in Finnish, which is my native language, we say Peetu.
Okay, well, I tried, okay? I did my best. I promise I did my best, okay? Anyway, as you know, I've asked you on this show to share some of your knowledge with us about learning English and how students can learn English. But obviously first, tell us about you. How did you learn English?
Okay, that's a great story. And it's not that great. Okay, I learned English in a very traditional way, like in school, since I was like 6 years old. In the first year of just getting into school, we had English lessons, and they were we had a American teacher.
Yeah, so, I was going to say, you have a very American accent.
Yeah, I think my mother told me that me and my sister, my older sister, we have very good English accent because of that. We had, from early stage of learning, we already had the contact with a native speaker of the language. And when you're 6 years old, you're not going to study grammar. You just, repeat some words and animals and some stuff like that, And compared to my younger brother and younger sister, which are like 4 and 5 years of difference, like between us, they don't speak it that well. But anyways, I feel that I actually learned more English when I turned 14. That was the turning point, like the tipping point, when I just realized, man, I can do this. Like, I dominate this language. It's I've conquered the language. I can use it. I'm fluent. But of course, I wasn't fluent. I was fluent in a certain level, but I was able to talk about anything. And that's just, started opening more doors, playing games, talking to people. And actually, I had this experience, like in a religious group. I don't know how to call it in English, actually. But anyways, it was in English also. And I met a lot of Finnish people that lived abroad, and their first language wasn't Finnish, it was English. So it actually helped a lot. And after that, I just, consumed a lot of content in English, internet.
Okay,
basically.
Yeah, sure. I love that attitude, though, of, I dominate this language, I've conquered it, because it is a mental thing as well, especially having the confidence to actually speak. Because lots of people they just don't have that confidence, and so often shy away from actually speaking.
Yeah, totally understand that. I totally see that. I'm doing these Facebook lives every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Probably you found me in that, like on one of those lives. But what I do there is I speak to people, like mostly Brazilian people and some African as well who speak Portuguese, which is the third language that I speak fluently. I see that they have this enormous difficulty in expressing themselves and actually believing that they can do. Like they can do something, like in this case, speaking the language. So I invite them to participate in the live and just talk with me, get over the fear and, like dominate your fear,
Yeah, no, absolutely. So you mentioned there about, how you, teach mainly Brazilian people, because you spent some time there as well, didn't you?
Yes.
So tell us about that experience, and also tell us about how you teach English, well, certainly to Brazilian people, and teach English in general.
Well, I have to say that it's easier for me to teach English, being a foreigner and not being a native speaker of that language.
Sure, absolutely. I completely agree. Because when I, for example, started teaching English, obviously I could speak the language, but there were so many things I didn't know, because you just learn it and you learn to speak like that, but you don't really understand why. You don't know the mechanics of the language.
Yeah, and it's just like if someone asks me to teach Finnish to them, I have to say no, because I don't know the language. I know how to speak it, but I have absolute no knowledge of the grammar. If someone asks me a question like, why do you say this? I can't answer that.
Yeah, sure.
So that helps. But back to your question, I spent 10 years in Brazil from 2008 until 2006. But there are like a few years that I spent like going to Brazil and coming back to Finland, and also an exchange year in Brazil. How I teach is I don't actually teach the language. I teach on how to learn the language. That's the most important thing. Of course, we teach in our English course that we have. We teach English, but the main objective is to actually make people capable of doing their own routine after they finish the course, so that they don't have to take another course and try to become even more fluent or something. They can I repeat a lot. But
I do as well, don't worry.
Yeah, but basically what we teach is like three. You can say it's called CDF.
Okay.
It's concentration.
Tell us about CDF.
Dead time and fun.
So, can you say that again?
Concentration, dead time, and fun. And in Portuguese, this is actually a very, very funny thing, because CDF is like, a nerd, someone who is a nerd,
okay.
So it's a funny way of saying things. But the point is that it's actually a question of activities. What kind of activities do you have in your daily routine? You have to have some kind of a routine and be in contact with the language. So first is the concentration. Have some kind of activity in your studies. And I don't like to say studies. I like to say consuming English.
Okay.
That is concentrated. Like you concentrate 15 to 20 minutes a day into something. May that be translating, or may that be just, reading a very interesting text that you just follow the transcript. For example, podcasts, take some podcasts and do that. But it has to be concentrated, so you have no distractions. The other one is dead time, which I love. Dead time activity is the kind of activity.
So dead time, basically, you mean maybe when you're waiting for the bus or something and you're not doing anything. Use that time to like stay in contact with the language.
Yes, exactly. Like washing the dishes, taking the bus to work, driving your car. Instead of listening to radio, put your headphones on and listen to a podcast. Like rock and roll English.
Sure, absolutely. That's exactly, like rock and roll English. That's the beauty of the world we live in though today.
Yeah.
That with the internet, it's so much easier to consume all of this content and stay in contact with the language like all day, and especially in this dead time to actually make it useful.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be the kind of, the dead time activity is like you just listen. You don't have to focus. Don't concentrate on it. Just, absorb a lot of things.
Sure.
You know, some expressions you might notice, some words that get repeated, like let's say 5 or 6 times. Those are the words you want to check if you don't know. Not every word you don't know. And then the fun, which is absolutely just focusing on having fun with the language. May that be conversing with someone, or reading a great book, or a short story, or watching a movie. Something
exactly. Yeah, I always recommend to students to do something they're interested in. So because then that keeps that motivation and makes it more fun. For example, if I had to read a book about art, I wouldn't find that very fun in Italian, for example. But you give me a footballer's book in Italian, then I will happily read that all day without any problems.
Yeah, that's true. Totally true. For example, I love podcasts. I listen to podcasts about everything, from business to astrophysics. Yeah. And I learn because it's something that I am interested in.
Absolutely.
And one thing I want to say about learning a language, and not just language, but now we're talking about languages. So it's really important from the beginning to set the bar low enough. So when you have your goal, like, okay, this year I want to go from, like, I don't know, B2 to C1 or whatever. Like you want to improve your level of English, and set the bar low enough. If you say to yourself, like, at the end of the year, like, I want to learn English this year, and I'm gonna, do 1 hour of study, concentrated study every freaking day. It might be very hard, and the day that you don't achieve that 1 hour, you might actually end up quitting and giving up, just because you set the bar really high. It's really difficult to start from zero if you don't have any contact with the language to do 1 hour every day. So just 5 minutes is enough.
Sure.
It's totally enough. So set the bar low enough and keep consistent in whatever you're doing.
Yeah, I think that's really important to be consistent. That's one of the main things, because even just that small contact, but if you do it every single day, it's much better than just doing, for example, 2 hours a week and then nothing. Exactly,
which is the other problem that now I'm talking about the market that I serve, Brazilians. Some people, they take an English course, which is like 1 or 2 times a week, and it's like 1 hour or 2 hours a week, and it's not enough that you go to the class and you expect to learn. The greatest results I've seen have been, achieved by those students who actually come to the class with questions, with a question or questions about what they have seen during the week and consumed a lot of content in English. Maybe that can be reading and even writing and podcasts or videos just.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I can tell you from my own experience, I work in a language school, and there are the students that come and think, okay, I'm paying for this course, I come 2 times a week, therefore I will learn English at the end of it. But it obviously doesn't work like that. And as you said, the best students are the ones that come with a question, and because they're studying outside of the class as well, they're trying to put into practice what they've learned outside of the classroom, inside the class, to try and really play with the language, and they're the ones that see much bigger results. So what about resources? What resources can you recommend for us, or that you recommend to your students?
Well, first of all, download Stitcher.
Okay.
And start just, not researching, but searching for podcasts. And pick up a category. That's a difficult word. How to say category?
Category, yeah.
Category, yeah.
Yeah, that's the English accent. Yeah, I think the American's more like category.
Yeah, category. Yeah. But anyways, difficult word for me. And find something interesting. That's what I really recommend. And also just start reading anything from comic books to children's stories to short stories to academic papers if you can, or if you're interested, do it.
Sure,
and do
absolutely.
it daily.
Yeah. And you obviously have a course as well, so what's your method there? How do you, how is it structured? Oh,
well, let's not go to structure, because if you ask me to tell tell you the structure and explain the structure is going to be very, very long podcast. So basically, like I said before, it's based on the CDF. We call it the CDF method, which is the concentration, dead time, and fun. Okay. And all the activities that we have inside our course are like a lot of reading, a lot of listening to original and authentic audios, and also write-ups, some kind of writing exercises, and activating the students and also practicing the pronunciation.
Okay.
And challenging
because that's very
them,
important as well, practicing pronunciation.
Yeah, it's
I actually read once there are more breakdowns in communication because of an error of pronunciation rather than an error of the word. So, for example, if I say to you, yesterday I go to the shop, I've made a mistake with like the word with the verb form, but you still understand what I say.
Completely.
But when there are problems with pronunciation, that's actually leads to a bigger breakdown in communication.
Yeah, and it's really hard, at least in Brazil. People have a lot of difficulties in the pronunciation.
I think everywhere. Yeah, everyone has like their own sort of different difficulties because of the sounds of the language.
Yeah, and it's just a question of training your facial muscles to speak the language. Because you have to exaggerate when you train your pronunciation. You have to exaggerate. You have to try to be happy, try to be sad, and repeat whatever you hear. And
exactly. I think that's important as well. When you have to exaggerate, because then if you do it in an exaggerated way, then when you actually come to speaking, you'll naturally do it in a more natural way to sound more fluent. Let's say.
Yeah, more like a native. Just try to achieve that, but don't focus on it. You'll never sound as a native because you will always have the accent from the place you are from, or your mother tongue.
Yeah, but that's absolutely not a negative thing at all, because if you can be understood
the beauty of the language.
Very well, exactly, shows that you've actually learnt the language, you've taken the time to do that, and I certainly appreciate it, and I know a lot of people do.
Yeah, it's absolutely fantastic.
Absolutely. Okay, anyway, Peetu, was that right?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, perfect. Tell us where we can hear more about you, find out more about you.
Yeah, well, those of you who live in Brazil, I really recommend checking out our Facebook page, which is Inglês Feito Fácil. I'm probably going to write it down.
Yeah, but there'll be links to all of this in the show notes.
And then the same in Instagram, the same name, and YouTube as well. But for anyone who's not from Brazil, and also for anyone actually, we have set a chatbot in our Facebook page, so you can just put some R and R code there, just write R and R, and we will send you a short 16, 17 days of English practice with some short stories that we have actually written on our own.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Obviously, we love free stuff here. Everyone loves free stuff. And the short stories I highly recommend, because it's just, especially maybe before just going to bed, having a quick read of that actually helps you sleep as well. I've read. So it's a very good thing to do. So thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay. Well, I hope to see you soon.
Equally.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
So I hope you enjoyed that episode there with me and Peetu speaking about learning English. Don't forget to get your free gift from rockandrollenglish.com/English Made Easy. I've had a look at it already and it's fantastic. A very short story that you can read just before going to bed. There are specific instructions of what to do with the story. It's not one of those short stories and then they're actually like 20 pages. It is actually a short story, but with some lovely instructions of how to use it to help you improve. Anyway, what have we learned from this? The thing I loved the most was when Peetu said that one day he just thought, you know what, I dominate this language. I've conquered it. I'm fluent. And then he also said, of course I wasn't fluent, but he believed he was, okay? That's the really important thing. It's a thing in your head as well. When you tell yourself, my English is very bad, if you keep saying that, you will actually believe it. I heard recently, our brains are like a supercomputer and it runs on the messages that you give it. So if you keep saying my English is terrible, then, know what? It probably will be. But if you tell yourself, I dominate this language, then it will be a completely different story. I thought it was also interesting when he said native speakers aren't always the best teachers, which is absolutely true. Even though I am a native speaker, I'm probably making myself look bad here, but it's absolutely true because non-native speakers have had to learn the language and go through the same process that you have. The CDF thing as well was very nice. The concentration, only he said 15 to 20 minutes a day. That's not too much, is it? And the dead time as well, that's very good. Really try and use that time when you're doing nothing, basically, nothing of interest. You're waiting for the bus, you're washing the dishes. Use that time to switch on a podcast, and a fun podcast. Do we know any fun podcasts? What about maybe Rock and Roll English? I don't know. You be the judge of that, okay? Anyway, thanks a lot for listening, everyone. Remember to get your free gift from Peetu, and there is the transcript for this conversation on rockandrollenglish.com/English Made Easy. Episode 131. I think I've mentioned that already, but it doesn't hurt, does it? Just mentioning it again. Anyway, I will see you all on Monday, people, for the normal episode. But in the meantime, just keep on rocking, baby.
Thanks so much for listening to Rock and Roll English. For more great content and to stay up to date, visit rockandrollenglish.com and facebook.com/rockandrollenglish. We'll catch you next time.